So let me give your warm introduction to our viewers. Hello, people. He's Professor Dinesh Soni. He's a businessman, influencer, and a writer. You guys know, like, there are so many temples and architectures, or even cave sculptures, like we even don't know exist in places. But Indian temples. Mr. Dinesh Soni has an Instagram page called Indian Temples. In his page, he gives us information about the temples, caves, and architectures and their histories, which we even don't know exist in India or many other places. Today, we'll get to know some insightful things from his end. Hello, sir. Welcome.
Hello, thank you very much. It's nice to be on speaking to you at Paradox Media.
So, my very first question is like, how about this journey about Indian temples, how you started this, and what about till now, your journey?
Actually, I started this page around 2.5 years ago. It was November 2019. The intention behind starting this page was never to share information. The actual intention was to gain information. Because when I started to search for temples on Instagram, I could not find many pages that will provide authentic information. There were a few pages that would provide a propaganda-based information, or maybe some information that was aimed at spreading hatred towards a particular community. So I wanted to have a page that would provide actual information. And in fact, even I didn't have a lot of information about many temples. So I thought this would be a nice way to get in touch with other fellow temple lovers, someone like me who actually like temple, and I can communicate with them and get to know about many more temples. So that was my intention. My traveling passion has always been there. Even since I was a child, I used to travel a lot with my parents. My parents are kind of religious persons, so they visit many temples. Their actual intention to visit those temples was mostly religious one. But when I started to visit those temples along with them, I started to realize that there is a lot more than only the deity. There were a lot of sculptures, lot of monuments, lot of different architectural features that normal people would notice. So I started noticing them ever since I was a child. I studied little bit about them. And then when I started this page, I thought maybe I can also share some information, and I will also get to know information from others. The journey has been really wonderful beyond my expectations. Right now I have around 68,000 followers on this page. I also have a YouTube channel where I have a few subscribers. And recently I have received a award for this page. It is Local Digital Influencer Award. So that is one award that I have received for the same page. I have also been felicitated by a university based in Taiwan, Taipei University, for my research in archaeology and mythology. And right now I'm also trying for a PhD in this field. I'm doing some research, and if it works out, I may receive a PhD in Indology. So that's my whole journey of this page.
Thank you so much, sir. It was very insightful to know about it. The thing I am very curious to know about is like, were you interested in temples and architectures before, or just with the flow of your work, you studied more about it and got more interest?
Actually, when I started visiting temples from childhood, I wasn't very much interested in archaeology or the sculptures or the iconography of it. But as I started this page, and I started to get to know more details about this page, about archaeology, about temple features. So that's the point where my study actually started. That's the point where I started to study a little more, little in detail, because my intention always was to provide only the authentic information, only the correct information. And if I had to provide the correct information, I had to study thoroughly about the topic. So that was actually the point where I started to study rigorously. Even before that, I was aware about few things. I knew about temples, I knew about some archaeological features, but I wasn't very much detailed. I wasn't very much thorough through that concept. So ये point था जब मैंने actually detailed study start किया.
Like, sir, you have written so many books. Approx, I guess, 16 books you have written, and how to build self-confidence, psychometric testing, and many other books. The book I got very impressive or interest in was like Hanuman Chalisa in Marathi, and a
Yeah.
detailed explanation. Hanuman Chalisa. What thought came to your mind, or tell us something about Hanuman Chalisa in Marathi, the book you have written?
Okay, so this is the book. It's called Hanuman Chalisa, Arth of Anvayarth. Actually, being from a religious family, ever since I was at my young age, we used to say Hanuman Chalisa at home every Saturday, every day, or whenever there was a special occasion, we used to just recite Hanuman Chalisa. And there were like 10 times, 11 times, 15 times, 21 times we used to recite it. So, yes, at that time, I did not know much about Hanuman Chalisa. I did not really care much about the meaning of it. But when I was talking about Hanuman Chalisa to my son, he was, I think, 3 years old at that time. So my 3-year-old son asked me, "Papa, ये हनुमान चालीसा का मतलब क्या होता है और हनुमान चालीसा क्यों बोलनी चाहिए?" तो दैट वाज द पॉइंट जब मुझे समझ में आया कि मेरे डैड ने या मेरे पेरेंट्स ने या मेरे फैमिली मेंबर्स ने कभी मुझे ये नहीं बताया कि इसका मीनिंग क्या होता है, या ये पोएम का एक्चुअल ट्रांसलेशन क्या होता है, या इसमें जो वर्ड्स लिखे गए उसका मतलब क्या है. सो दैट वाज द पॉइंट आई डिसाइडेड कि अगर मुझे नहीं पता है इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि मेरे बेटे को भी नहीं पता होना चाहिए. आई विल हैव टू स्टडी, आई विल हैव टू फाइंड आउट थिंग्स एंड आई विल हैव टू टेल हिम. सो दैट वाज द पॉइंट जब मैंने स्टडी करना स्टार्ट किया हनुमान चालीसा. आई स्टार्टेड टू रीड बैक स्टोरीज दैट आर एसोसिएटेड विद हनुमान चालीसा. जो लाइंस में जो बैक स्टोरीज आती है वो सब बैक स्टोरीज मैंने स्टडी की. आई स्टडीड द सोशल एंड इकोनॉमिकल पार्ट ऑफ द टाइम इरा व्हेन हनुमान चालीसा वाज रिटन. एंड ये सब स्टडी करने के बाद में आई डिसाइडेड टू राइट इट डाउन. During the lockdown in 2020, there was a lot of time at hand, and I thought to use that time for writing this book. So this is actually the gift of lockdown for me. The book actually has it is more than 200 pages book, and it has detailed translation as well as detailed explanation of every verse in Hanuman Chalisa. There are 40 verses in Hanuman Chalisa, and this book provides detailed Marathi translation of every single verse of it.
Like we know there were many rules and regulations in ancient times. Were
Yeah.
there anything mentioned about the LGBTQ community?
Yeah, there are actually many references available about LGBTQ community in our mythology, in our epics, as well as in temple structures. As we know, Khajuraho or Konark, these temples are very famous for their sexual arts, and a lot of those sculptures are now vandalized or broken or stolen. But there are still some sculptures available, and out of these sculptures, there are a few sculptures that depict homosexuality in it. Like if I have to give example, there are sculpture at Kandariya Mahadev temple in Khajuraho. There are some sculpture at Rajarani temple in Bhubaneswar. There are some sculptures at this Bhoramdev temple at Khajuraho, or Ambarnath temple in Ambarnath is close to Mumbai. So even there is a depiction of homosexuality. There is one sculpture at Bagai in Karnataka as well. And in fact, a very curious case that I noticed, there is a sculpture in Seattle Museum in USA. That sculpture was actually stolen from one of the temples in Odisha. And that sculpture depicts Kamdeva, that is like a cupid. So Kamdeva is actually shooting an arrow at two women who are standing there. So there are a lot of those depictions, and in fact, not just about sexual, there are other depictions as well. Like there are references of cross dressing in a temple at Kanchipuram. Cross dressing has always been a part of Tamil folk art or Tamil folk theatre. Folk cross dressing was a very important part. And if we talk about mythology, if we talk about epics or the Puranas or Ramayana or Mahabharata, there are many references. Like we all know about Shikhandi. Shikhandi was actually a woman who changed herself into a man to satisfy her wife. So that is one story that we all know about. We all know about the story of Mohini. The Vishnu took a female form when Samudra Manthan happened, and when Amrut Kalash came out. And at that time, Vishnu took form of Mohini to please the Asuras. And at that time, after the Amruta was distributed, and after the gods and demons left from there, Shiva stayed back. Shiva was actually very attracted to this female form of Vishnu, the Mohini form. And then Shiva and Mohini had a few sons. They gave birth to, so Vishnu in a female form gave birth to many warriors in our mythology. There are also references when Shiva himself cross-dressed or became a woman. There is a temple in Tiruchirappalli in Tamil Nadu at the Rock Fort. There is a temple of Shiva which talks about. I have written the name. It's the temple of Thayyuman Swami as it is called. So that's actually a temple of Shiva's female form. He took the form of a mother to give birth to or to have delivery of one of his devotees. There was no one to take care of that pregnant woman, and Shiva took a form of a female, and he went there to take care of that pregnant lady. So there is this story. There is another story when Shiva took form of a female because he wanted to attend the Ras Leela of Krishna in Vrindavan. So when Krishna used to perform cross Leela along with Radha and other gopis, no male were allowed to come nearby, but Shiva badly wanted to be there. So he took form of a female and he went there. There is also another story of Arun. Arun, he was the Sarthi of Surya. He used to carry the chariot of Surya around. So Arun actually took form of a female, and he went to Indralok to watch Apsara dance because no one apart from Indra was allowed there among females. Only females were allowed in that darbar. So Arun actually took the female form and he went there, and Indra was very impressed by Arun's female form, and then they gave birth to Vali. Vali and Sugriv, those are the characters of Ramayana. So Vali is actually son of Aruni, that is female form of Arun, along with Indra. And similarly, Aruni and Surya has a son that is called as Sugriv. So Sugriv and Vali both are sons of a male, Arun. There are also references of Bhagirath. Bhagirath was born by, he was son of two women. And similarly, Urvashi was daughter of two men. So these are all references that are available in our mythology. If we just closely observe our mythology or our epics, we will find many such references in there.
Like
And
talking
in
about
fact, there is another point that I would like to mention here. If we visit any temples that are built after 8th century or 9th century, we see a panel of 8 or 9 small figures that are all usually on the entrance of the temple or in the antral part. That is, antral is the part between Garbhagraha and Mandapa. Garbhagraha is where the deity is placed, and Mandapa is the large open surrounding, large open area outside the Garbhagraha. So there is a small part connecting Garbhagraha and Mandapa that is called as Antral. So in Antral or sometimes at the entrance we see small panel of 7 to 8 goddesses that are placed, and these goddesses are nothing but the female form of gods. So there is Vaishnavi, who is female form of Vishnu. There is Maheshwari, who is female form of Shiva. There is Brahmani, who is female form of Brahma. There is Indrani, who is female form of Indra. There is Vinayaki, who is female form of Ganesha, Vinayak. So we actually worship the female forms of gods in almost every single temple that was built after 8th century and before 16th century. So for those 800 years, any temple that was built, we will find Saptamatruka or Ashtamatruka. These are actually female form of our gods.
So talking about depictions, were there any women right depictions in temple?
Yeah, talking about human rights, I will first like to actually start with epics and mythology. So if we go back to Vedic periods or study the Ramayana or Mahabharata or the Puranas or Vedas, we will find out that women had all kind of rights at that time. Women were allowed to choose their own partner, their own husband. Women had right to educate themselves. They were educated equally to the men. They had a right to remarry if their husband dies. If a woman becomes widow, she was allowed to remarry. And in fact, there is no reference of any kind of divorce available there. So men were not allowed to divorce, or they were not allowed to leave their wife. Even monogamy was the thing in those times. Women were actually called as Ardhangini, which means they are equal part of the family, and they had all the rights in family. In fact, we will also find references of many women who were taught economics, who were taught warfare, who were taught politics. So they were well learned about politics and warfare. There are references in Ramayana where Sita was said to be equal warrior to Rama, or Kaikeyi has actually fought a war along with Dashrath, and she had saved life of Dashrath at one of the wars. So these are all the references that we find in our mythology. And if we talk about sculptures, if we talk about temples, Many temples built after 7th or 8th century, they show many women independently. They are involved in music, they are involved in dancing, they are involved in writing, they are involved in different kind of arts. So you find many of these sculptures, and in none of these sculptures a woman is I mean, there is another man with the woman. The women are standing by themselves, they are independent, they are independently performing all these arts. Like I saw earlier mentioned, there are many male gods are actually worshipped in their female forms, and they are said to be more powerful in their female forms. So that is also one thing. There are few references where queens of particular kingdom have actually commissioned a temple. They have built the themselves temples or monuments by themselves. There is a UNESCO World Heritage Site in Karnataka called Pattadakkal. So in that side there is a temple of Mallikarjun, or there is a temple of Virupaksha. Those temples were actually commissioned by the queens. If we know, most of us know about the Queen's Stepwell or Rani Ki Vav in Patan. Gujarat में है ये जगह Patan. And the Queen's Stepwell, the name itself suggests that it was built by a queen. There is another temple close to Bangalore, Bhoganadishwara. It's a very famous temple. It's around 40 kilometers from Bangalore. So that temple was also built by the queen of that Hoysala kingdom. And in fact, there is one temple close to Brihadeshwar temple. Brihadeshwar temple, some of us might know. It's in Tanjore and it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So around 15 to 20 kilometers away from Brihadeshwar temple, there is a small temple. That temple was also built in similar times as Brihadeshwar, so in 10th and 11th century. And there is an inscription that tells that the temple was totally run by females. The management was looked after by all female. There were even the priest of that temple; those were also female. So there are many of such references available in our mythology, in our temple sculptures, that talk about how women were treated equally like men. I think the changes started to happen after 14th or 13th century, when we were attacked by invaders, and those invaders started to rape our women. So after that, we preferred to keep them safe inside their homes, and that's where suppression actually started after 1 or 2 generations. See, there is a common saying in English: when something happens once, it's just a mistake, but something happens again, or it keeps happening again and again, it becomes a norm. So that's what I think happened after generation after generation. It became a norm, and now we started to think that this is how it has always been.
So you talked about mythology. What is mythology all about?
Mythology actually a very mistaken concept right now. When I publish anything about mythology, when I publish any story on my Instagram page or YouTube channel, I receive many personal messages, many comments that don't use the word mythology, use the word history. These are comments that I very often get, because people think that mythology means everything is a false and history means everything is truth. But it's not always that way. Just like psychology, just like anything related to brain, everything is relative. Everything is relative concept. There is nothing called nothing as absolute as we think. So अगर मैं माइथोलॉजी की बात करता हूँ, माइथोलॉजी को अगर डिफाइन करना चाहता हूँ, तो मैं एक्चुअली 3 चीजों में कैटेगराइज करता हूँ चीजों को. देयर आर फैक्ट्स दैट आर प्रूवन, दैट आर ट्रू, जिसको हम कहते हैं कि सत्य. देयर आर थिंग्स दैट आर लाइज, दैट इज असत्य. और सत्य और असत्य के बीच में एक ग्रे एरिया होता है. द समथिंग दैट कैन बी माई सत्य बट यू आर असत्य. जो मुझे सत्य लगता है लेकिन आपको असत्य लगता है, या जो कुछ होता है कि आपको सही लगता है बट मुझे लगता है कि वो गलत है. सो दिस इज ऑल अ सब्जेक्टिव पार्ट, जो कि सत्य और असत्य के बीच में आता है. तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि ये जो बीच का पार्ट है, दैट इज माइथोलॉजी. समथिंग दैट सम पीपल बिलीव, सम पीपल मे नॉट बिलीव. समथिंग जो कि पार्शियली प्रूवन है, पार्शियली अनप्रूवन है, दैट इज माइथोलॉजी. अगर माइथोलॉजी को और थोड़ा सा अगर प्रॉपरली डिफाइन करना है, क्रूड वे में डिफाइन करना है, माइथोलॉजी वुड बी द स्टडी ऑफ स्कल्पचर्स, द स्टडी ऑफ एपिक्स एंड द स्टडी ऑफ रिचुअल्स. हम सिर्फ टेम्पल्स को स्टडी करके पूरी तरह से हिस्ट्री नहीं समझ पाते हैं, या जो एविडेंसेस है उसको स्टडी करके पूरी तरह से नहीं समझ पाते हैं. हमें समझना चाहिए टेम्पल्स को, स्कल्पचर्स को, आइकॉन्स को, उसके स्कल्पचरल फीचर्स को, उसके आर्किटेक्चरल फीचर्स को. साथ ही हमें समझना चाहिए अपने पुराण, अपने वेद, भगवत गीता, या फिर जो भागवत है, जो रामायण महाभारत जैसे एपिक्स है, जो इवन 11, 12, 13 सेंचुरी में जो भक्ति ट्रेडिशन में लिखे हुए बुक्स है, उनको भी हमें समझना चाहिए। और साथ ही हमें समझना चाहिए रिचुअल्स को। हमारे वेडिंग्स होते हैं, हमारे जो अलग अलग टाइप के फेस्टिवल्स होते हैं, हमारे घर में जो पूजा होती है, मंदिरों में जो पूजा होती है, उसमें हम जो रिचुअल्स को फॉलो करते हैं, जब आप इन सभी चीजों को एक साथ एक जगह पे स्टडी करते हो, व्हेन यू अंडरस्टैंड ऑल ऑफ देम एज अ होल, एज अ टुगेदर, एज अ बंच टुगेदर, only after that you will be able to understand your religion in a more refined way, in a more accurate way. और ये मैं समझता हूँ कि this is mythology, the study of all these as a team.
Like you have visited so many places right now about the temples, religions, and everything. So you have visited the architectures. I want to know about these cultures which are till now present, and we can see in the temple walls and even on the pillars of.
Okay, actually, to answer this question, if you visit any district in India, any state, any district, any taluka place, you will find at least one temple that is from 7th or 8th century, and that has a lot of architectural wonders, lot of beautiful sculptures. The only problem is that we most of us don't know about these sculptures. We know about Taj Mahal, we know about Khajuraho, we know about Jaipur, we know about a few other temples, but there are thousands and lakhs of temples situated placed in almost every single village, every single taluka place, or every single district. There are many different temples that have lot of beautiful sculptures available. If I have to pinpoint a few specific temples or few specific regions that have many beautiful sculpture, I would like to pinpoint the Hoysala temples in Karnataka. That is the area of Halebeedu or Belur, uh, or there are many different places close to Mysore or Tumkuru or Hassan. These are the district places. Hassan, Tumkuru, and Mysuru. These are the district places. And in these districts, you will find a lot of temples, lot of beautiful temples. Apart from that, there are many beautiful sculptures available at temples in Odisha. There are beautiful sculptures available at uh, different temples in Tamil Nadu as well. The Chola area temples or Pandya area temples, you will find a lot of beautiful sculptures. In Mahabalipuram or in Tanjavur, in Tiruchirappalli, you will find many sculptures. One big problem that I noticed when I visited many temples, many lesser known temples as well, there are many places where temples are not being taken care of very properly. There are many places where sculptures are just laying around without any care, without any information at all. Like there is I put up a post a week ago on my Instagram page. There is a place called Dharmapuri. It's a very small village place close to my place Latur, where I'm situated. It's in Maharashtra. And in that place there was a temple Kedareshwar that was totally broken a few years ago. That time when I visited it first time, I clicked a few photographs. I sent them to Archaeological Survey of India. I sent them to Archaeology Department of Government of Maharashtra. And similar to me, there were many others who actually started this movement to started a movement for outreach of these photographs. They started to share those photographs, and after we shared those photographs, the temple has now been regenerated. The temple has been reconstructed now, and those sculptures that were laying around in the farm nearby, those are now gracefully placed inside the temple. So very close to that Kedareshwar temple, I just visited it a couple of months ago. Sorry. And very close to that place, there is another temple that has 72 sculptures laying around in an open area. There is no shade, there is no information about this temple, there are no security to these monuments. It's placed in a playground of a school. There is a small primary school at that place, and in the playground of that school, there are 72 sculptures that are laying around. There are many beautiful sculptures. There are some sculptures that are as heighted as 5 feet or 6 feet sculpture. There are Jain monuments. There are Hindu idols. There are Shiva idol. There is Vishnu idol. There are Brahma idols as well. There are few broken kalashas. There are few yakshas and yakshis drawn there, and all these sculptures are just laying around. And this is not just one rare case. Similar cases are there in every single village of our country. What happened was, after 14th or 15th century, when invasion started, we were more focused on saving ourselves rather than saving our temples. And I don't blame them or blame that generation. because that was obviously the priority. But even after 500 years, when now we are safe, we are not taking any precaution, any efforts to save our heritage, save our monuments. So that was actually one of the purpose that I started with this page, when I started to visit these temples and realized how those sculptures are laying around. So I thought that we need to have a movement where we can save our heritage as a team. When all Indians come together and take some positive efforts, we can definitely do something about it.
So, we have many cave temples in India, but
Yeah.
many of cave temples haven't been come in our limelight yet. What are the reasons behind it? Are they not taken care properly?
Talking about cave temples, actually, the movement of building cave temples started from Bihar, and then was gradually spread to other regions. But when we look at the history of cave temples, there were a few particular kingdoms that really gave a lot of importance to building cave temples. So there were Pandyas in southern part. There were Chalukyas at Badami in Karnataka. There were Satvahanas who ruled from Amravati in Andhra Pradesh. So I come from a region that was ruled by Satvahanas for a long time, and close to my place there are caves of Ajanta, Ellora, that are really famous, that are World Heritage Site, and many people visit those caves. But very close to Ellora there are other caves as well. Like there is a place called Bhokardan, there is a place called Aurangabad. Aurangabad city itself has a few caves. There are Pitalkhora caves, or in fact, even in my home district Latur, there are 5 caves, and even the local citizen know only about one of them. There are 5 different cave temples, 5 different places where cave temples exist, and only one of them is known to the common people. So the reason I feel was firstly the neglect by government, neglect by the local citizens as well. The most of those cave temples are covered by shades, covered by trees, because those were built in a hilly region. Those were built in rocks, and close to those rocks there were many trees that grew over the time, and many of those caves were covered by these trees. Even when those caves came to light, the limelight, or people came to know about them, those caves were not looked upon as a place of worship or as a place of place of architectural wonders, because see, caves were not never meant to be built as temples. uh, Temples, those were actually built to showcase our culture, to showcase our history, to tell stories from our epics. So that was the primary purpose. And we were more focused on taking care of our places of worship rather than the places that were not really in function anymore. So those caves were started to be used as a drinking spot, or as a hiding spot for dacoits. That's how many of those caves were started to be used. And maybe that is one reason why common people did not go much to these caves. They did not actually feel like exploring them. There were also many geographical reasons, or many rather accessibility reasons for this. Many of those cave temples were not really very easily accessible to common public. You had to do a lot of rock climbing or a lot of trekking to reach these caves. So that might be one reason why common people did not really feel like reaching out to these places. Obviously, there are many caves that now have special staircases or pathways designed. In fact, Ellora cave is very soon to get a lift as well for physically disabled person. They are installing a lift there. So now approaching those caves have become a lot easy. But there was a time when accessing those cave temples or approaching those caves was not as easy. So there are actually combination of multiple reasons. There are multiple factors that actually accounted for the neglect towards these caves.
As we know, in previous times, if we talk about architectures, in previous times, the architectures were much stronger than the architectures which are made in the present scenario. What are your views on this? Are the architectures not built like strong like previously, or is just from that side it's carelessness?
Mm, If we look back in our history, if we go back to the times from say 5th century, 6th century, or up to 12th century, temples were less of a religious place and more of a social, economical, educational, judicial, trade centers. There were multiple factors, multiple reasons behind building these temples. Temples used as social center where people used to gather. They used to celebrate festivals by coming together. Temples were educational places where students used to come to learn from gurus. The gurus used to come there to teach the children about different parts of life. They were used as trade centers, so there were a lot of businesses set up in or around temples. The pilgrimage or the businessmen who used to travel from one place to another, they used these temples as setting up their shop. They used these temples as a halting place for night. The temples also used as judicial places where the kings used to visit these temples and they used to interact with common people, understand their problem or understand the quarrels between people, and the kings used to provide justice there. So these were also judicial places. So temple was not just a religious place; it was built up to be uh, used as multiple purposes. It was also economical place, or just like you have banks today. The banks provide loans to common people to do businesses, and the people give back to bank in terms of interest. So similarly, there were times when the temples used to provide finances. To temple used to provide resources. They used to provide machinery or seeds or fertilizers to common people or farmers, and then they would repay the temple in terms of providing their grain or providing their services to temple. So when the temples were built with so many functionalities, the temples were built for so many purposes. It was very obvious that the kings would actually want the temple to be stronger. They want the temple to be very much what you say grand structure. So they used to have a lot of they used to provide a lot of money for building these temples. So that was one reason there was lot of money available for building these temples. Nowadays there are different systems for everything of this. There are different educational systems. We have schools, colleges, universities. For financial purposes, we have banks. We have many government bodies, government authorities, or institutions. For judiciary, we have a whole together different system. For social purposes, we have different kind of places, different kind of say for marriages we have Mangal Karyalay, we have for coming together we have function halls, for celebrating festivals we have many lawns available. So nowadays temples are only the religious place. They don't function as anything more. Obviously there are few temples that still work as healthcare facilities, like there is temple of Sai Baba in Shirdi, there is temple of Tirumala. Those provide healthcare facilities. There are temples like Golden Temple that provide food to a lot of people. So yes, there are few temples that still provide function as some of these functions, but most of the temples are only a religious place now. So when we are building only a religious place, so there are obviously less finances involved less what you say willingness involved in that building those temples. So that is one reason why the current structures are not really as strong or as beautiful as earlier temples. But obviously that is not the only case. There are few temples like if we visit any Birla temple, any temple built by Birlas, or any ISKCON temple, any Narayana temple, or any temple built by ISKCON, we will find out that even these temples are as grand as the earlier temples. They are putting up a lot of efforts, putting up a lot of finances in building these temples. So that was one reason. There was also another reason that the availability of time. A few minutes ago, I was talking about the Haribidu temple or the temple near Mysuru, the Hoysala temples. So some of these temples took more than 100 years to build. They took more than three generations of workers were working on these temples. So if when you provide so much of time, so much of energy, so much of money in building these temples, so obviously the temple structure are going to be very grand and very beautiful.
So
So
if
these
we
are
talk
mostly
about
the
God, like if we talk about gods, which parts other than India have the same depiction of gods, or how come the same depiction of gods exists?
there isn't actually same depiction. we have many temples dedicated to the same gods, but the way of depicting them is slightly different in every part of the world, or rather in every part of country as well. We find different depictions of our own gods. Apart from India, we see many Hindu temples in Philippines or Malaysia, Indonesia, Cambodia, Bali, all this part. Even in Japan, we see many Hindu temples that are very ancient in nature. The reason being, if we study our Puranas in Vishnu Puran, it is mentioned that the world is built of 7 dvipas. Like we call continent today, there is Asia, Europe, or America, Africa, Antarctica. We call these as continents. So there were 7 dvipas that are mentioned in Vishnu Puran. So our country or our region is actually part of Jambudvip. So Jambudvip is what current day Sri Lanka or India or Pakistan comprises of. And there was another dweep, that is Kushadweep. Kushadweep is the part of Oceania, like we today's Indonesia or Philippines, Malaysia, Cambodia. These were all part of Kushadweepa. And ever since I think from starting from first or second century, or rather even before that, we used to have a lot of trade happening between these two dvipas. Sailors used to go from our part to the Kushadvipa with lot of materials taking with them. They will go there, they would trade there, they would do business there. And while coming back, they would bring lot of different things from that part. So there were a lot of ships going between the two regions. There is a port that has recently been being excavated. There is an excavation going on in Tamil Nadu. There is a place called Karkai, yeah, Karkai, and there are many evidences available that from first or second century there is used to happen a lot of trade. There are lot of different places actually in Mathura, in Ter in Maharashtra, in some parts of Andhra Pradesh. We have found many coins from first or second century from this region, from Thailand and everything. So when those traders used to go from this part to the another part, they would take along with them some stories from our place. So they would go there. They will tell stories there. They would tell stories of Ramayana, stories of Rama, stories of Hanuman, or stories of different gods. And that's how our religion was spread. That is my assumption. That is how many historians claim. There are obviously no concrete evidence to prove this fact, but that is how historians claim that religion was actually spread outside India. In fact, we see today's Thailand. The earlier name of Thailand was Siam. Siam is actually a short form of Sham. Sham means Krishna. And the earlier capital of Thailand was Ayutthaya. Ayutthaya was the name of the city. That is actually a Papanhush of Ayodhya. So even today the kings of Thailand consider themselves as from the clan of Rama. They say they are from the same clan as Ram. They actually call themselves as disciples of Ram. So that's how our religion was spread in this region. And if we see the Angkor Wat temple, that is most famous temple outside India, it's situated in Cambodia. So there were many such temples built in 1st, 2nd, 3rd or 4th century in this region. And after 17th or 18th century, many Indian workers moved to different parts of world, in African continent, in American continent, and they built many temples there. So there were two different waves actually. From 1st to 5th century, there were many temples, especially in the Malaysia, Indonesia region. And after 17th century, there were many temples built in other parts of world. So that's how our religion actually spread to this region. In fact, when you visit Malaysia, when you visit Bali or Sumatra or Cambodia, Indonesia, you will find out many Ramayana tales, Ramayana stories are told in their performance arts. When there are dance performances, when there are cultural performances, they have a lot of cultural performances that are oriented around Ramayana. They tell stories of Ramayana. The depiction of Ram or the depiction of Hanuman is different in different regions. वी सी हनुमान एज बाल ब्रह्मचारी, जिन्होंने कभी शादी नहीं की और जिनका मकर ध्वज के अलावा कोई बच्चा नहीं है. That's how we see Hanuman here. But in some parts of the world, Hanuman is seen as one with more than 1 lakh wives, more than 1,000 or more than 1 lakh wives. That's how Hanuman is depicted at some places. We see Ram as incarnation of Vishnu. We see Ram as someone supreme being. But at some places, Ram is considered as a very human being, very much a human person, just like you and me. So Ram is depicted as a human being who did some good work, who did some good things for his kingdom. So he is considered to be a human king, not a divine king at some places.
So, this would be my last question from my end. What are the tips and suggestions you would like to give to the people who are studying in this field right now, which you didn't get?
Okay, there is one suggestion that no one ever gave me. When I used to visit temples, when I used to visit different parts of country, I was always told to visit temples to get darshan. मुझे कहा जाता था जब भी मैं किसी मंदिर में जाता था तो बाहर आने के बाद मेरे रिलेटिव्स को जब बात करता था वो बोलते थे दर्शन कैसे हुए, यही हर कोई पूछता था. लेकिन दर्शन इस वर्ड का एग्जैक्ट मीनिंग मुझे कभी किसी ने ये नहीं बताया कि दर्शन का मीनिंग ये नहीं होता कि हमें जाके भगवान की मूर्ति देखनी है. दर्शन का मतलब ये होता है कि यू हैव टू सी अराउंड. दर्शन इटसेल्फ संस्कृत वर्ड, इट मीन्स सी अराउंड. तो मैं सेम सजेशन अदर लोगों को देना चाहूंगा. व्हेनेवर यू आर विजिटिंग अ टेंपल, व्हेनेवर यू आर विजिटिंग अ मॉन्यूमेंट, definitely you should go to Garbhagriha, you should see the primary deity of that temple, but you have to also look around, you have to look at the sculptures, you have to look around the monuments, you have to look around different parts of that temple. और हम कभी मंदिर में जाते हैं we do a प्रदक्षिणा, हम भगवान को एक सर्कल में फेरी मारते या घूमते हैं मंदिर में. तो when just the way you are doing a pradakshina of the deity, I would suggest everyone to do a प्रदक्षिणा of the temple itself. पूरे मंदिर के साइड में भी एक राउंड कीजिए, मंदिर के आसपास का एरिया देखिए, मंदिर के बाहर जो स्कल्पचर्स गिरे हुए हैं वो देखिए. And when you are seeing those sculptures laying around, when you are witnessing those sculptures laying around, don't just click photographs. You have to also share those photographs with the concerned authority, concerned state's cultural department, concerned archaeological survey of India, regional office. When you are talking to local citizen, do not just talk, do not just get information, communicate with them. उनको बताइए कि उनका जो मंदिर है वो कितना important place है, कितना important heritage monument है, and how those villagers have to take conscious efforts to save this heritage. क्योंकि I have seen this in many cases. जब तक local villagers सामने नहीं आते हैं, जब तक local villagers उस temple के लिए कुछ नहीं करते हैं, तब तक temple preserve नहीं होते हैं. Local villagers play a lot of important role in building the temple, rebuilding the temple or reclaiming the temple, like we say. So that is one suggestion to those who are visiting temples. Those who are very much interested in archaeology or very much related interested in iconography, definitely you should read more from actual researchers rather than reading on Instagram or reading on Twitter or YouTube, watching YouTube videos. बिकॉज यूट्यूब वीडियोज में और इंस्टाग्राम पेजेस पे आपको सही इन्फॉर्मेशन कभी नहीं मिलेगी. देर आर वेरी फ्यू पेजेस दैट एक्चुअली ट्राई टू प्रोवाइड करेक्ट इन्फॉर्मेशन. सो डू नॉट ट्रस्ट एनीथिंग दैट यू रीड ऑन इंस्टाग्राम, डू नॉट ट्रस्ट एवरीथिंग. डेफिनेटली क्रॉस चेक इट विद द एक्चुअल बुक्स, विद द एक्चुअल रिसर्चर्स, एक्चुअल स्कॉलर्स. मार्क माई वर्ड्स, ये जो रिसर्चर होते हैं आर्कियोलॉजी फील्ड में, इनको कोई नहीं पूछता है, उनके पास बहुत टाइम होता है. So any one of them will be very readily available to speak to you over a coffee or over a dinner. Definitely आपको सिर्फ उन तक पहुंचना है, उनको एक बार फोन करना है, सभी आपको easily available हो जाते हैं. Definitely you should try to reach out to more researchers, more actual scholars who have done research. And only when you will understand from right sources, you will get the right information that will create the right mindset, that will build up the right insight. And that will create a right society for our world. आज हम जो देखते हैं कि किसी एक पर्टिकुलर कम्युनिटी की तरफ हेट्रेड स्प्रेड किया जाता है इंस्टाग्राम के थ्रू, किसी एक इनफैक्ट सेंसेशनलिज्म, या भी तो सिर्फ मीडिया तक रिलेटेड नहीं है, सेंसेशनल हर चीज को बनाना है. टेम्पल रिलेटेड पेजेस भी जो है, दे आर ट्राइंग टू क्रिएट एवरीथिंग इनटू सेंसेशनल टॉपिक. रिसेंटली देयर वाज अ न्यूज ऑफ finding a temple-like structure, not a temple, temple-like structure in Jordan. सो सेम न्यूज वॉज शेयर्ड एवरीवेयर कि देखो हमारी संस्कृति तो जॉर्डन तक पहुंची हुई थी, वहां पे हमारा टेम्पल मिल रहे हैं. सो हिंदू संस्कृति इतनी महान है, इतनी बड़ी है कि हमने पूरी दुनिया पे राज किया हुआ है. इट इज नेवर लाइक दैट. टेम्पल लाइक स्ट्रक्चर मीन्स समथिंग that was in a square shape like our temples are built. That was the meaning of that news, but that was spread in a very different way. So those are the two tips that I would like to गिव. फर्स्टली दर्शन कीजिए मंदिर का, नॉट जस्ट मूर्ति का. मंदिर में भी देखिए, मंदिर के आसपास देखिए. हो सके उतने म्यूजियम्स को विजिट कीजिए, क्योंकि जब आप म्यूजियम्स में जाते हैं तो आपको एक्चुअली हिस्ट्री पता चलती है. और एक्चुअल स्कॉलर से सीखिए, एक्चुअल रिसर्चर से इंफॉर्मेशन लीजिए, नॉट जस्ट फ्रॉम यूट्यूब वीडियोज एंड इंस्टाग्राम पोस्ट.
Thank you so much. It was a very insightful session, and I hope our viewers also enjoyed it, got very interested, and it was so knowledgeable that even I got to know so many things from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was actually my pleasure to be speaking with Paradox India. When I met Prarthana during the Lokman Digital Influencer Awards program, and when I came to know about this channel, I was very much impressed by the good work you are doing. After that, I visited your website, I visited your Instagram feed. I actually went through more than 30, 50 or 40 live sessions that you have conducted of different scholars from different field of life. And I realized that you work with a lot of open mind. You try to interview most people from different fields of life, and I'm really impressed by your work. In fact, I would like to suggest my viewers to follow the Instagram channel of Paradox India. You will get to know about a lot of interesting parts of your life as well.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.